for the lecture part. Okay. So let's look at our sound design lecture. We'll talk about how sound is used in games before we put sound into the games. And let me know if the sound doesn't come through on Discord. It should come through, but if you don't hear anything, just let me know in the chat or on the mic. All right, so with sound in video games, it's used to enhance the quality of immersion. This is the feeling of involvement that a player has in the game world. So immersion is something that we want to go for. We want this experience of the player feeling immersed in the world, feeling like, you know, they're part of that world. And sound is a really important component of creating that feeling. So we tend to spend a lot more time on graphics, and that's going to be true in this class and, you know, throughout the semester. Because there's so many graphics on the screen, we tend to spend a lot more time talking about the graphics and creating the graphics and thinking about the graphics. But sound is just as important for creating the gameplay experience and creating the interactivity of a game. So we're very used to sound effects and sounds being used to signal different components of the game and signal different types of interactions. And so a game would feel very incomplete without the component of sound. So for our sound effects, we need sounds for any event that happens in the game. So everything that happens, whether it's a user interacting with the keyboard or the mouse, or objects in the scene interacting by colliding with each other, or spawning onto the map or doing other things, we should have a sound that's associated with every event that occurs in the game. So any collision or interaction between objects, anything that we need to imitate real world physics, any change in state of the game if we go from one level to another, or if we lose a point, or if we lose a life, and any type of user input, any click on a button, any mouse press or any keyboard press, gamepad press, everything we do should be accompanied by some type of sound that reinforces the fact that these are events that are happening in time. So let's take a look at some examples of sound design in video games. We're going to start very early with Pong from 1972. And what I want you to notice is that even though there are very few actual sounds, there are distinct sounds for all of the actions that happen in Pong. So there's only 3 sounds in the entire game, but they have a distinct sound for when the paddle hits the ball, if the ball hits the top or bottom, and then if the ball passes the player's paddle and scores a point for the other player. So it's very simple sound design, but it communicates everything that we need to know about what's happening in the game. So we're going to move forward a little bit to Sonic the Hedgehog from 1991, and we'll see a lot has changed in the in the time in between. And I want you to pay attention in particular to the background music and how it changes in Sonic and how that signals where we are in the gameplay. So we can stop there. So notice that in Sonic, obviously we have a lot of background music, and there's different songs that are used to give examples or to let us know what part of the game we're in. So the gameplay, the main levels have a more fast and busy background track, and then there's the same song that plays when we get to the end of the level as when we start a new level, and then there's the in between level that has a slower song with less going on. And also notice that there's a similarity between the sound effects that are being played and the types of instruments that are in the background music. So we can hear the difference between the sound effects and the music, like they stand out from each other, so we know when we're hearing a sound effect versus hearing the song. But they use similar types of sound, so it sounds like it's coming from the same world. So Sonic is a really good example of a game that has a lot going on with different sounds, but it all fits together. So I'm going to play a little bit of a longer clip from a game, this game Half-Life, which came along a bit later, which uses sound in a similar way, but changing within the level, changing within moment to moment. And there's a lot of, you can see how much work goes into creating all the different sound effects and changing the sound dynamics. So we're going to watch a little bit of a longer clip from this game.
fracture detected.
Hey, it's not good up there.
Depleted.
Okay, so we can stop there. But so there's a lot going on in those scenes. A couple things that I just want to point out. Uh, the One of the ways that Half-Life uses sound really well is by creating ambient sound and sound effects that help the player anticipate what's coming next. If you notice, when we're about to approach a dangerous area of the level, the music starts to get more tense, and we often hear sounds of the enemies before we actually see them. So sound is used to kind of create that sense of anticipation that heightens the drama of the video game. There's also uh, all these different environments, and the sound changes as we go through the different environments. So you probably noticed when the player goes under the water, the sound quality changes the way it would if you were underwater. You can only hear some of the lower frequencies of the sound effects and music. The music changes, or sometimes it drops out completely, depending on what's going on in the level, to raise the drama or to make you listen to the sound effects more closely. And then there's also very, very loud sound effects, like the gunshots are very loud, the explosions are very loud compared to everything else. So it really stands out a lot. So they use sound really well to create this sense of anticipation and drama and excitement as you're playing the video game. Sorry for all of the loud gunshot sound effects. So moving forward a little bit, we've talked about this game a little bit either last week or the week before and mentioned its sound design. But Braid is a really good example of a game that incorporates sound directly into the game mechanic. So you can reverse time in Braid, and sound is used to show that we're reversing time because the sound also reverses. So notice that even though the sound is being incorporated into the design, it still has the main characteristics of sound effects. There's a sound effect for every action, like when we jump on the enemy or when you achieve the key or open the door. There's a sound effect that is related to everything that happens in the game as well. So jumping ahead a little bit more to another indie game, Inside. This game uses sound in a really cool way, and it's more recent, so the sound quality is much more sort of advanced and higher resolution. And you'll notice there's this real synthesis between the action of the game and the soundtrack. And as the drama of the game builds up, as the player moves through the level, the game, the sound, and the feelings of the game are very much in sync. So we'll watch a little bit of this one. So in that one, notice how this changes in sound mark the changes in the scenes, because we don't have like actual cut scenes between those different challenges, but the sound changes very abruptly when we move from one scene to the next. So that signifies that we've moved past one challenge and onto a new challenge. So when we work on sound effects on Thursday, these are the types of sound effects we'll be trying to add into the game. So sound effects for the player, jumping, walking, attacking, dying. Any enemy movement, if the enemy attacks, if the enemy dies, those might be the same sound, but we can choose to add multiple sounds if we want to. changes in the game state. So if you start a level, if you end a level, if you switch levels, if you open a menu, rewards, collecting a reward or some type of achievement, and then any user interaction menu stuff, which we don't have quite yet, but we'll add that later. So things like opening a menu, pausing the game, closing a menu, or other actions like that. Ambient sounds in a game are not the result of changes in the game. So these are sounds that we add just to add sort of setting and scenic elements and kind of environmental sounds to the game to give the sense of a place that we're in. Ambient sounds can include rain, wind, traffic, police sirens, voices, other things that we might hear in the background in real life. And then sounds can also be cues to direct the player towards a goal or something in the game. So sometimes we have voiceovers, like literally telling the player what to do. We could hear footsteps of another character that gives a sense of direction or location. We saw the heartbeat being used in inside to create tension and to anticipate upcoming challenges. So for more on sound, there's a good video, The Importance of Sound in Video Games, that goes through more examples and talks about those sounds in detail. So let's go back to our schedule. And so for today, we're going to do background music. This will be a good chance for us to just add some music into the game and go over the basics of sound. And on Thursday, we'll add sound effects. So that'll be a little more challenging. We'll have to update our code a little bit and find multiple sounds to add into the game. So I'm going to stop this recording